Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
The second we stepped into the Lakeshore Country Club banquet hall in Oak Park, I wanted to walk right back out. Too many chandeliers, too many suits, the smell of polished money in the air. Dana looked amazing in her navy dress, holding Caleb's hand while he fidgeted with the stupid clip-on tie he already hated. "This is insane," I muttered, scanning the crowd. "Why are we even here?" Dana bent down, fixing Caleb's collar with that calm, mom-like precision. "Ice cream after this?" she whispered to him. He nodded like he'd just been promised the moon. The invite had said Tara Brooks' wedding, but the only reason we came was because Kleinsis, Dana's orthopedic implant company, was in deep with the hospital the groom worked at. Dana thought it'd be good networking. I thought it'd be a disaster. Then I saw her, mid-toast, across the damn room. The bride turned her head, and my gut dropped out like I'd been punched in the stomach. It was Melissa, my sister, 12 years gone. I hadn't seen her since the day they kicked me out. 24 years old, broke, standing in the rain with a suitcase and no plan. I stood there frozen, like a ghost at her own funeral. She saw me. Her eyes locked on mine, went wide. Her champagne glass trembled. Then our parents saw me. Quick note. Before we start, share in the comments. How's your day going, and where are you joining from? And let's continue. Dad moved first. That stiff, fake smile like he was guarding a politician. He came toward us, not fast, but with purpose. Mom followed behind, lips drawn so tight they vanished. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, just loud enough for the table next to us to pause mid-fork. I should have answered, but my throat locked. That memory hit hard. Me on the porch, soaked, humiliated, begging to come in, her turning off the porch light. Dana stepped in. Her voice didn't rise, but it carried. "My husband is on the guest list." Kleinsis was invited by Dr. Ryan Brooks himself. She didn't blink. A few doctors nearby turned at the name. I caught one whispering, "Kleinsis? The Spinal Monitoring System Company?" Recognition spread like spilled wine. Ryan Brooks, the groom, made his way through the crowd. Tall guy, surgeon look. That kind of fake humility rich doctors wear like cologne. His smile faded when he saw Melissa's expression. "You know the founder of Kleinsis?" he asked our parents. Melissa's jaw tightened. She hadn't told him. She hadn't said a damn thing about me. I forced a smile. "Hey, Mel." "Congrats." Her face didn't move, just a twitch near her eye. Ryan looked at her confused. Melissa told me her brother didn't make it through college. That one stung, but I let it pass. I didn't. I graduated trade school while working nights. Then built a company. I kept it cool, but inside I was shaking. Not from nerves, from restraint. Caleb pulled on my sleeve. "Dad, is that lady your friend?" Melissa flinched like he'd smacked her. Ryan blinked. His whole vibe shifted. He looked at me again, really looked this time, and something clicked. I watched Melissa's posture collapse by an inch. The pearls on her neck didn't shine as bright anymore. Her fairy tale was cracked, and I wasn't the one looking for the exit. The air around us shifted, not loud, just tight, focused. Like the wedding had turned into a live surgery, and everyone was suddenly watching our side of the room. Dana kept her cool, sipping champagne like nothing was happening, but her eyes were busy, scanning, measuring. She leaned toward an older man in a charcoal suit and whispered something. He laughed and clapped her on the back lightly. "No way." "You're with Kleinsis?" he said. "We've been using your spinal monitoring systems for a year now. Cut our ICU stays by 28%. He pointed at me. "You're the guy who designed the first-gen boards, right?" I nodded once. "Yeah, and the fail-safe firmware after the rollout issues." He grinned like I'd just given him free money. "You saved us $500,000 in readmission costs. Mercy Detroit owes you a beer." At least Dana kept the conversation flowing, light and natural, like we weren't standing in the middle of a bomb crater. But I saw what she saw. Melissa across the room, surrounded by a few physicians in formal wear, trying to stay poised while sweat started to dot her upper lip. "It's part of my ongoing work in anterior cervical discectomy," she said to them. "We're evaluating long-term outcomes through a slightly modified approach." A young woman in a deep green dress cut in, puzzled. "Wait, didn't the NIH retire that protocol 4 years ago?" Melissa blinked, then laughed just a little too loud. "There's debate in the field." "No, there's not," another doctor said flatly. "That trial ended with a safety halt. Nobody uses that model anymore." She smiled wider, the way people do when they're trying not to drown. From where I stood, I saw Ryan's face change. His hand slipped off her waist. Not angry, just confused. And maybe starting to get embarrassed. He didn't jump in. He just listened, too long for comfort. Mom saw it too. She cut through the crowd fast, that fake grace she always used at fundraisers sliding back into place. "Melissa was a standout during her time at Stanford Med," she announced, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "She's always been ahead of the curve." Dana turned her head slowly, smiling just enough to show teeth. "Which program was it?" "We do annual mentorships with the Stanford Med interns. My team never saw Melissa's name on any cohort list." The pause that followed was brutal. It wasn't long, but it was loud. Then came the whispers. From the dessert table, a woman leaned over to her husband. "Didn't they say her brother failed out?" "Thought he disappeared years ago," he whispered back. I didn't flinch. I was done playing polite. "I worked 3 jobs," I said clearly, not shouting, just enough to cut the chatter. "Put myself through community college and then night school. I never saw a single dime of the family education fund the Cleveland ortho rep, big guy with a badge clipped to his pocket, nodded once. That's grit." Respect someone near the bar added, "More than I can say for half the pre-meds I interview." I watched Melissa freeze. Her shoulders were up too high, smile too wide. Nothing about her looked natural anymore. Dana stepped forward, not to push, just to balance the room. She asked the surgeon from Detroit, "How's the integration on the second phase alert system?" "Clean," he said, eyes on me now. "Honestly, I don't know why we waited so long to partner. Your data's tight." Melissa was still fielding questions from 2 doctors who looked genuinely confused. One of them said, "You're not board certified in neuro, right?" "No," she said quickly. "I consult on post-op recovery. It's a hybrid role. Where do you practice?" "My work is more research-oriented right now," she answered, already pulling back. Ryan was staring at her like he'd never really seen her before. My mom tried to jump in again. "Melissa has always been modest about her work." "Right," I muttered. "That's the word for it." Then I felt a tug on my jacket. Caleb, wide-eyed and leaning up on his toes. "Can I have some cake now?" I looked down at him, hands still wrapped around my suit cuff like he was worried I'd disappear. I gave him a nod. "Yeah, buddy. Let's go grab some." We stepped away, but I didn't need to look back. I could feel the difference behind me. The center of the room had shifted. The buzz had moved. The story everyone was telling each other now wasn't about the wedding. It was about us. Melissa had built a tower out of paper. And tonight, the air had finally started moving. I walked Caleb over to the dessert table, let him load his plate with frosting and sugar, and gave Dana a quick nod before stepping away. I couldn't stay in that room another minute, not with all those eyes shifting between me and Melissa like we were exhibits under glass. My shirt collar felt too tight, my skin too hot. I moved through the side hall toward the restrooms, needing air more than I needed a mirror. The second I pushed open the men's room door, I stopped short. She was already there. Melissa stood in front of the sink, dabbing at her eyes with a paper towel. Her mascara was smudged. Her hands trembled when she caught sight of me in the mirror. She didn't look like a bride. She looked like a woman holding onto the edge of something with torn fingernails. She didn't say anything right away, just stared at me, waiting for me to back out. I didn't. "Why are you doing this?" she hissed. I shut the door behind me. "Doing what?" "Don't play dumb. You weren't supposed to come back. You were gone." Her voice cracked but sharpened again fast. You were the dropout. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her fall apart in real time. Nah, I just wasn't worth the tuition money, remember? She turned to face me fully now, eyes red, breathing shallow. They told me if I wanted Stanford, they couldn't afford to split it. That's what it came down to. One kid got the money. They gave it to me. No shit, I said. You think I didn't know that already? You think I didn't hear them whispering about investing where it matters when they thought I was asleep on the couch? She flinched like I'd smacked her, but I wasn't yelling. I was just done pretending I hadn't seen all of it the first time around. They said you wouldn't finish, she muttered. Said you had no plan. I didn't have money. That's different. Her jaw clenched. She looked down at her heels like they had answers. Then she let out this bitter little breath. I didn't even want to be a doctor. I wanted... She stopped herself, shaking her head. I wanted the image. I wanted people to look at me and believe I mattered. I stared at her for a second, making her sit in it. And I just wanted to build something real. Something that worked. She took a step back. Her whole body was shaking now, like she couldn't hold the mask together anymore. You don't understand, she said softly. I was scared. You were always better at making things happen. People liked you. I knew the second you figured out how to use it, you'd leave me behind. I felt something shift in my chest. Not pity exactly, just clarity. For all her performance, this wasn't someone with power. It was someone who'd spent her whole adult life covering up a lie that started when she was 19 and scared of not being enough. You were right to be scared, I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She turned toward the sink again, wiping at her face like it could erase the night. Her mouth opened like she wanted to keep talking, but nothing came out. I walked to the sink next to hers and turned on the water. Washed my hands. The silence between us stretched tight, heavy with 12 years of silence and a room full of witnesses who'd started seeing her clearly for the first time. She spoke again, barely a whisper now. You're going to destroy me. No, I said, drying my hands with slow, methodical movements. You did that yourself. I just showed up. When I stepped out of the bathroom, I saw Dana and Caleb waiting near a row of coat hooks. Dana didn't ask what happened. She didn't have to. Caleb looked up from his frosting-smeared plate. Mom said we can go soon. You done? Dana slipped her hand through the crook of my elbow, gave it a soft squeeze. Ready when you are. I looked back toward the hallway, but I didn't feel anger anymore. Not even satisfaction. Just the kind of calm that comes when you stop needing anything from someone who never had your back in the first place. Yeah, I said. Let's go. We stepped back into the reception just as the string quartet switched from Bach to some light fancy crap I couldn't name. Nobody was dancing. The food stations were mostly abandoned. The buzz wasn't at the cake table or the floral centerpiece with $1,000 of white roses. It was around us. Doctors in tuxes and hospital execs in cocktail dresses were drifting over, polite but focused, like bees around a hive they hadn't expected to find. One of them, a short, stocky woman with a Mercy badge and a glass of red wine, leaned in. I heard you're the brains behind Kleinsis, she asked. Dana answered before I could. He built the core architecture. I ran deployment and integration. We're expanding into implant diagnostics this quarter. The woman raised an eyebrow. Real-time calibration? Down to micron-level feedback, I said. Initial trials show a 15% improvement in surgical precision. That got more heads turning. A younger guy in a gray blazer stepped in. You're integrating that into the monitoring suite too? Eventually, Dana said. But first we're launching it as a diagnostic module. Low friction. Ryan was right behind them now, silent, locked in. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't glancing around for Melissa. He was listening like someone finally turned on the lights in a dark room. Melissa lingered at the edge of the conversation, doing that tight-lipped bride smile, trying to reinsert herself. A few guests turned to her out of courtesy. So, which Stanford program were you in again? A woman asked her. Melissa looked directly at Dana, then at me. It was a specialized research track, not part of the standard cohort. That's strange, another guest said. My niece was in their spine fellowship 3 years ago. She would have known you. I wasn't in that specific group, Melissa said quickly. It was adjacent. A partner track. Her voice had a quiver she couldn't hide anymore. The charming, polished bride was gone, just a tired, cornered version of herself now, clutching a flute of champagne like it could hold her up. Then Dad stepped in. He moved through the crowd with that old practiced stride, arm around Melissa, voice sharp with authority. Let's not make this about old history, he said. This is Melissa's big day. We should be celebrating her and Ryan. His eyes landed on Ryan like he expected backup. Ryan didn't blink. We don't want to lose focus, Dad added, pushing forward. Let's bring it back to Melissa, not... He waved vaguely toward me. All this. Ryan still didn't move. No smile. No agreement. Just a hard silence that stretched too long. Caleb tugged my sleeve again, voice too loud in the stillness. Dad? Is she still your sister? I knelt beside him, met his eyes. She's related to me, I said. But family's different. Dad's face went red instantly. His hand dropped from Melissa's shoulder. You can't just walk back in here after 12 years and act like you belong. I stood up straight, taller than him now, heavier too. I didn't walk back. I was invited. Dana's company was invited, and I built a life you never thought I could. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dana didn't say a word. She just reached into her clutch and handed me the envelope we'd brought in case things went sideways. It wasn't a plan. It was a message. I walked past my father and stepped right up to Ryan. Congrats again, I said, and handed him the envelope. He opened it carefully, looked inside, and pulled out the certificate. I saw the flicker in his expression as he read the words, "One symbolic share of Kleinsees Incorporated. Granted in professional courtesy." His brow furrowed slightly. You're offering me a small token, I said. No strings. Just recognition. Welcome to the next chapter. He looked at me, then back at Melissa. His jaw tightened. I could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. He wasn't angry. Not yet. Just finally realizing how much he didn't know. Melissa reached for his arm. Ryan! He stepped away from her touch without looking at her. I didn't need to stay there. The shift was already in motion. Ryan had heard the conversations, seen the hesitation, watched her dodge every question. The doubt was permanent now. The moment was past saving. Melissa's hand hung midair, forgotten. Dad opened his mouth like he had something to say, but nothing came out. He just looked at me, eyes filled with something that wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear that maybe the version of me they'd tried to erase didn't just survive. Maybe I was doing better than all of them. I walked back to Dana and Caleb, buttoning my jacket as I moved. No strut, no victory lap. I didn't need one. Behind me, Melissa stared like the floor might open up under her. She wasn't in control anymore. And she knew it. A month later, the wedding felt like it had happened in a different universe. The chaos, the whispers, Melissa's frozen expression. It was all background noise now. My world had moved on. I was in my office on the 37th floor of the Chicago Riverfront Tower, finalizing a contract with Saint. Mary's medical out on the West Coast. Big deal. Dana had prepped the pitch deck. I'd closed the technical gaps, and our legal team was locking down the final licensing clauses. The numbers looked good. Our projections were up. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without waiting for something to fall apart. Dana was at a spine symposium in Denver. Caleb had baseball practice after school. He was playing second base now, wanted to try shortstop. I told him we'd practice in the backyard after dinner. That morning he'd packed his own lunch and told me not to forget his game next week. I hadn't. I never did. The knock on my door was sharp, but not urgent. My assistant stuck her head in. Doctor, Ryan Brooks is here, she said. No appointment. Should I tell him to come back? I didn't answer right away. Just stared at her for a second, then nodded once. Send him in. Ryan walked in looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. His posture was slumped, the cocky surgeon vibe gone. His suit was wrinkled, collar askew, eyes dull like someone had turned the lights off behind them. He sat down before I told him to. Everything Melissa told me was fake, he said, no build-up. Just dropped it on the floor between us. She never went to Stanford. She never had a fellowship. She lied about the clinic. Said she was managing the books. Said she had it all under control. I didn't say anything. She didn't. Not even close. He ran a hand through his hair, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees like the weight in his chest was dragging him down physically. There's billing fraud, he said. Your parents' practice. It's worse than I thought. That got my attention. She ran some of the accounts herself. Apparently for years, I went through some old files, payments from insurance companies that never made it into official ledgers, double billing, ghost appointments. It's all there, 15 years of it. I stood still, my hands clenched behind my back, pressed to the window ledge. But I didn't move, didn't react, just stared at the skyline while he kept talking. I didn't want to believe it. But once I started digging, it was too clear. She knew what she was doing. I turned back to him. How much did you know before the wedding? His mouth twitched. Not enough. Not what mattered. He leaned back now, legs stretched out like he'd finally hit the part where he didn't care how pathetic he looked. I hired a lawyer, he said. I'm filing for annulment. There's nothing to fix. It was all built on lies. Still, I didn't say anything. Let him sit in it. Let the silence stretch. I'm not here to ask for anything, he added. I'm not asking you to get involved. I thought you should know he didn't mean that. Not fully. The question was in the room, whether he wanted to admit it or not. He was hoping I'd offer something. Advice. Help. Maybe a piece of the wreckage to stand on. I didn't give him anything. I'm not stepping back into that mess, I said. Not again. He nodded slowly, looked down at his hands like they didn't belong to him anymore. I get it, he said. You already won. I watched him carefully. He wasn't angry. He was hollowed out, like the reality of it all had scraped him clean from the inside. I thought I knew who she was, he said quietly. I didn't. I shrugged. She doesn't even know who she is. He stood. Thanks for your time. I stepped forward, shook his hand out of habit more than anything. It was clammy, weak, like all the structure he used to hold together his life had melted. He paused at the door. And I'm sorry, for what it's worth, for believing what they said about you. I stopped needing an apology a long time ago. He nodded once, then walked out without another word. The door shut behind him, and I turned back to the city. I didn't feel satisfaction, not even relief, just pity. Not for him, not exactly. Not even for her, just for the whole mess of it. A family that sold its future to protect a lie, and a man who bought into it because the package looked right. I pulled Caleb's schedule off the desk, circled his game on Saturday, and texted Dana a quick update about the contract. Then I put Ryan Brooks out of my head. That afternoon, I was on the train platform waiting for Caleb's practice to wrap when the email came through. No banner alert, just a quiet buzz in my pocket and a bolded subject line in my inbox. R.E. Ongoing Medicare audit. Request for testimony. I opened it without blinking. A federal investigator from the Office of Inspector General. Straightforward language. No threats, no drama, just a request. They were building a case on multiple Medicare fraud complaints tied to my parents' practice, dates stretching back 15 years. They had partial documentation, but needed corroboration. Needed someone who'd been close to the books. They knew I'd worked there, knew I'd seen things. I didn't answer right away. I stood still as trains passed by and phones lit up around me, but I just kept rereading that message. I didn't feel nervous or angry. It was something flatter, colder, like all the emotions had already burned out. That night, I sat in the bleachers with Dana while Caleb stepped up to bat. It was a humid evening. August heat hanging low over the field, kids sweating through their jerseys, aluminum bats clinking like wind chimes. I watched him adjust his helmet, tap the plate twice with his bat, then glance toward us like he needed confirmation we were still there. We were. We always were. Dana leaned into my shoulder, soft but firm. You don't owe them anything. I nodded slowly. She wasn't wrong, but she also knew me too well to think that was the end of it. They didn't deserve silence either, not the patients, not the elderly folks who thought they were getting clean care, not the interns who'd been roped into clerical fraud without realizing it, not the nurses who'd walked away in silence because speaking up meant losing everything. I remembered those ledgers, the mismatched totals, the overwritten entries. I'd been 17, working in that office after school, just trying to earn gas money. I didn't understand the numbers back then, but I did now. So the next morning, I logged into my cloud archive, the one I hadn't touched in years, and pulled out every monthly report I'd saved. I hadn't known why I kept them at the time. Maybe I just didn't trust the system even back then. I attached the PDFs. No commentary, no statement, just facts. I hit send. No press, no social post, no phone call to a reporter, just quiet damage. The kind that doesn't make noise, but doesn't go away either. A few hours later, the first voicemail from Melissa came in. She didn't call me Melissa anymore. The message started with "It's Grace," like that name still meant something. Her voice was tight, polite, and full of panic under the surface. She wanted to talk. Said she was going through a rough time and might need a short-term loan to sort out legal things. Her tone was fake sweet, all the way to the end. I watched the transcript pop up on my screen, then swiped it off without playing it. The next day, another one. This time the edge had sharpened. She still asked for money, but now there was a warning built into the words. Something about how Caleb deserved to know the full truth. That line was bolded in the transcript, like she thought it had weight. I archived it, no hesitation. Didn't even flinch. The third message hit that weekend right after Caleb's game. He'd hit a double and rounded the bases like he was flying. He came off the field grinning, glove in hand, asking if we could get milkshakes on the way home. The message came in while we were sitting in the car, engine running, windows down. Another transcript popped up. This time she didn't bother pretending. The voice-to-text garbled some of it, but I caught enough. She threatened lawsuits, claimed defamation, accused me of slander, of manipulating Ryan, of stealing the company's spotlight for revenge. I pressed and held the notification, muted the thread permanently. No alert tone, no buzz, nothing. Then I dropped my phone in the console and turned to Caleb. Chocolate or vanilla? He didn't hesitate. Twist. Dana smiled from the passenger seat. Of course. We pulled out of the lot and headed to Jackson's on 47th. All windows down, the smell of sunscreen and summer air mixing with the melted dirt of the baseball field still stuck to Caleb's cleats. I didn't need Melissa's voice in my head anymore, or her threats, or her twisted version of what she thought I was. I already knew who I was. More importantly, so did my son. He didn't care about resumes or medical school programs. He didn't care who lied or who folded under pressure. He cared that I showed up, that I kept my promises, that I was there every time he looked over his shoulder. And as Dana reached across the seat to touch my hand lightly, I realized something else. Her smile, that soft, steady curve that never asked for anything except the truth from me, was the only validation I'd ever needed. Melissa could burn herself down trying to keep the lies lit. I'd already moved on. 6 months later, our backyard was a mess of overturned soil, sun-warmed plastic buckets, and tomato seedlings that Caleb insisted were already taller than yesterday. He was in a Cubs cap, face streaked with dirt, plastic shovel in hand. Dana crouched beside him, marking off planting rows with garden twine like it was surgery. I leaned against the fence with a glass of lemonade, jeans stained at the knees, watching my family move like a team without needing a word from me. It was quiet, and I didn't mean the absence of noise. I meant the kind of quiet where nothing was waiting to blow up. No investigations, no lawyers, no voicemails I didn't want to hear. Just a kid laughing because he found a worm, and a woman humming along with a playlist on her phone. Inside the house, my phone buzzed with an alert. Not a call this time, just a confirmation. Mercy General's board had approved our surgical automation suite. That made 5 major hospitals this quarter, including St. Mary's, Riverbend, and Phoenix Central. We were ahead of schedule. Our install team would fly out Monday. I looked out at Caleb, squinting into the sun, while he jabbed the shovel into the dirt. "You're helping people heal faster, Dad," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I reached over and ruffled his hair. "Only because you helped design the tomato layout," I said. He grinned and went back to digging. The mail came later that afternoon. A manila envelope, certified, no return address, but I recognized the handwriting the second I saw it. Tight, too neat, like she was still trying to control the story even now. I opened it on the porch while Dana and Caleb cleaned up the garden tools. Just 1 page inside. Lined paper, handwritten. She didn't open with an excuse or a lie. Not this time. She called herself Melissa again. She said I was never the weak one. She admitted to everything. The school, the fake credentials, the billing fraud. Said Ryan had filed for annulment. Said the clinic was shut down. Said my parents had pulled back from the practice. Too old and too scared to face what was coming. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't even ask me to write back. It read like someone who finally stopped running because there was nowhere left to go. Dana came up the steps, dried mud on her gloves, the sun turning her hair gold. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me, then the letter, and waited. "I'm not replying," I said. She nodded once. "Good." I went inside, opened my laptop, and pulled up the application page for Mednava's re-entry internship program. It was built for former healthcare workers with disciplinary marks or incomplete certifications. Second chances for people who wanted to earn their way back. I didn't write a cover letter, just a reference letter. 2 paragraphs, factual, unemotional. I signed my name, scanned it, and attached it to the application. Then I mailed the original page back with it. Not mercy, just a path. She could take it or leave it. That part wasn't up to me. A few weeks later, I was in St. Louis for a healthcare innovation expo. Dana had a booth, and I was on a panel about post-op recovery tech. After my session, I wandered the vendor floor, looking at the fresh startups, VR rehab software, AI wound assessment, 3D printed nerve guides. It felt good to be surrounded by people building things from the ground up. Then I saw her. She was sitting in the back row of a small workshop titled Intro to Medical Coding Compliance. She looked normal. No pearls, no French twist, just slacks, a basic blouse, and a notebook open in her lap. She had a pen in her hand and a backpack at her feet. Watching. Listening. She didn't see me at first. Then she glanced up. Our eyes met. She didn't look away, didn't get up, just gave a single nod. Not defiant, not apologetic, just simple. I returned it. That was enough. I walked past her row, didn't break stride. I didn't need anything more from her. I didn't need her to become a better person. I didn't need her to crumble or succeed. I had already decided who I was. Whatever she became from here had to be hers. Back at the hotel that night, I called Caleb to say goodnight. He told me he and Dana had picked out a name for the tomato plants. Tomato Jordan. I laughed, said I missed him. He said I better be home in time to water them or they'd wither from emotional neglect. I promised I would. The next morning, I was back in the conference room at Kleinsis. floor-to-ceiling windows, legal pads out. Dana across from me, hair tied up, reading glasses on. Our CFO, Harlan, had already pulled up the projections. The numbers lined up. The board was behind it. No red tape. "This is personal," I said, tapping the folder in front of me. "Not for press. Not for brand. Not for PR fluff." Dana gave a half smile. "It still changes lives." Harlan nodded, running his finger down a spreadsheet. "We can fund 20 full tuition awards annually, plus stipends, relocation assistance, and one-year entry roles at Kleinsys. No clawbacks, no income traps." "Good," I said. "That's the line. No strings." He adjusted his glasses. "Name?" I looked over at Dana. She didn't say a word. She knew. "The Foster Medical First Gen Fund," I said. "No legacy names. No family tribute. Just mine. Reclaimed." It was the first time I'd said it in a room full of professionals, Foster, and felt no hesitation. I hadn't been proud of it for a long time, not since they threw me out and told the extended family I'd flunked out of life. That name used to feel like a bruise. Now it felt earned. We locked in the framework by noon. Harlan would draft the legal structure. Dana would oversee the mentorship track. First round of applications would open in the spring. Every awardee would get a seat at our table, inside the labs, in strategy rooms, building the next wave of surgical systems. No prestige admissions, no old money, just raw grit. It was a silent answer to what they'd tried to take from me. The education, the support, the belief that I could be more than a problem to manage. I drove home with the windows down, summer air thick but alive. Caleb was already at the dinner table, sketching something with crayons. A robot, I think, but it had way too many arms. Dana slid a plate across the table to me, pasta and grilled squash. "Eat before it goes cold," she said. Then, like always, she let the space breathe. I waited until after Caleb cleared his dish, then told him, "We're starting something new," I said. "A scholarship." He squinted. "Like money?" "Like helping kids who didn't get a fair shot." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Helping kids like you, Dad?" I smiled. "Yeah, exactly like me." He nodded slowly, serious now. "Then it's going to be good." After he ran off to build whatever mechanical chaos he was designing, I stepped into my office and opened my phone. There was one last voicemail from Melissa. No transcript this time. Just her name flashing at the top. No message preview. Just the audio icon waiting to be tapped. I hit delete. Didn't hesitate. That was the last thread. Forgiveness wasn't required. Peace didn't need her permission. I had moved on, and nothing about her words, past or future, could pull me back into that shadow. I walked into the hallway. Dana was folding towels, humming some tune from the radio. Caleb was yelling something about rubber bands from his room. "Hey," I said. She looked up. I pulled her in for a hug. Tight. Quiet. The kind that didn't need a reason. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. We'd already built something better. The ballroom at the Boston Healthcare Innovation Summit buzzed with the low hum of polished shoes, expensive lanyards, and smart people trying to sound smarter. Panels ran back-to-back across 3 floors. Dana and I had arrived the night before, and I hadn't sat still since breakfast. Kleinsys had been nominated for a National Advancement in Surgical Technology award. I didn't expect to win. Honestly, I figured it'd go to one of the biotech giants throwing billions at AI integrations. But they called our name. I walked up to the stage under spotlights and a polite wave of applause, shook hands, held the glass plaque. Simple, clean, no speech, just work finally being recognized. Later I sat on a panel with 2 surgeons, a systems engineer from Johns Hopkins, and a medical ethicist who had a weird obsession with neural implants. I talked about our implant calibration suite, real-time feedback loops, and how mentorship was the only reason I'd figured out how to build any of it in the first place. Afterward, the crowd drifted toward the lobby coffee bars. Dana and I found a quiet corner by the windows, sipping lattes that tasted like melted paper, trying to decompress. She was texting Caleb a picture of the award when I spotted someone approaching. Young woman, maybe 20, dark blazer, sensible flats, application folder hugged tight to her chest. She had that look I remembered from years ago, like she was trying not to be in the way but had something she couldn't afford not to say. She walked straight up to me, no hesitation once she locked eyes. "Mr. Foster?" she asked, voice just above a whisper. "I was referred to your mentorship program by someone named Melissa Brooks?" I blinked once but didn't react, just nodded. "She's in our coding division now," I said. "She's earning her place." The girl's shoulders dropped slightly like she'd been holding her breath. She smiled. It wasn't nervous anymore. "Thank you for the opportunity." "I'm one of the first-gen applicants from the spring cohort," I extended my hand. "Glad you made it. Keep building. Don't wait for permission." She nodded hard. "I won't." Then she turned and walked off into the sea of booths and branded pop-up banners. Dana slipped her hand into mine and didn't say anything at first. Just leaned against my shoulder and watched the crowd scatter into breakout rooms. Then, soft and steady, "You know you changed more than just the game, right?" I looked out the window. The sun had just started cutting through the clouds. The city buzzed beneath us, alive with people who'd never know the fights we'd survived to get here. I nodded slowly. Took me long enough. She squeezed my hand. That was all I needed. The sun dipped behind the fence, dragging long shadows across the backyard. That golden light hit the sprinkler mist just right, turning it into a soft blur while Caleb ran through it barefoot, laughing like nothing bad had ever happened in the world. His shirt clung to his chest, soaked and stuck, hair dripping, face lit up. Dana stood at the grill on the deck, humming quietly to something coming through the speaker. Salmon sizzled beside a tray of asparagus. She moved with ease, flipping, brushing, checking the edges like she was conducting an orchestra no one else could hear. I sat near the edge of the patio, a big stainless bowl in my lap, shelling peas like it was my life's work. The rhythm of it, snap, pop, drop, kept my hands busy while the quiet settled in around us. My phone buzzed once, screen lighting up on the armrest of the chair. I glanced at it. Her name, another email. I tapped the screen, settings, notifications off. Then I set it face down and went back to the peas. Calm. No need to read it. No need to engage. "Dad! Catch!" I looked up just in time to get smacked in the chest with a soaked, half-deflated foam ball. Caleb was already laughing before I caught it on the second bounce. I grabbed it off the ground and stood up. "You trying to knock me over?" I called out. He beamed. "You said you used to play." Dana turned her head. Teasing smile locked in place. "Still got those hands?" "Barely," I muttered, tossing it back. My throw was off, but he snagged it and spun like he'd won the World Series. The sprinkler hissed and clicked behind him. The grill flared once. Dana dropped the heat and flipped the last fillet onto a wooden platter. The smell floated over. Citrus glaze, cracked pepper, a little smoke. She brought the tray over and I followed her inside, brushing pea shells from my jeans. I didn't think about my parents anymore. Not in a bitter way, not with heat behind it. Just not at all. They were a different life, a closed door, nothing behind it that I needed. We ate at the kitchen island, windows still open, Caleb wrapped in a towel, asking 1,000 questions about how photosynthesis worked. Dana handed him a grape popsicle for dessert, and he called her Coach Mom, like it was the greatest nickname ever invented. Later, I watched him fall asleep with a comic book open on his chest, mouth slightly parted, hair still damp from the yard. I closed his door and walked down the hallway, the floors creaking in that familiar old house way. I stepped back out to the deck, looked over the yard, and sat down with the last of my lemonade. Some people go back to settle scores, revisit the wreckage, fight for recognition, stay stuck in a loop that doesn't care how it started. I didn't go back. I moved forward. I planted something better, and it's growing. Do you think he should have forgiven Melissa? Or was silence the better choice? Drop your answer in the comments. If you like the story, hit like and subscribe. It's just one click, but it means a lot to us.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.